Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Don't Open That Door. It's a nice night, and I'm joined by Dan. Dan, how you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good, pretty campy.
You feeling pretty campy, huh? Nico, how you feeling?
Man, I can't wait for summer.
Me either, and neither could our doomed cast on today's movie. We're going to be taking a look at Friday the 13th, the original from back in 1980. So before we start, I will say Nico and I both watched the kind of director's cut. I believe it's the unrated director's cut, correct?
Yeah, it was unrated, uncut, deluxe, real rap and real raw, you know.
Indeed. Dan, did you happen to have the luxury of watching that same one? Or did you watch the standard?
You know I did.
All right, bet. So that's the one we'll be reviewing. So there may be some minor differences from the theatrical release. So, we have the classic story here. Most people know the story of Friday the 13th. We open up and we're basically treated to Annie, who's one of 7 camp counselors who are going to basically be restoring Camp Crystal Lake, known as Camp Blood by the locals. All these, I guess they're supposed to be around what? College age?
I would say so.
Assume?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're all there for basically 2 reasons. To camp out and have sex with each other, pretty much. But unfortunate for them, their plans are foiled as they all start dropping off one by one by a mysterious killer.
They were also there to get high, as they said, "Hey, you got any of that grass? That Mary Jane?" And the sultry tones of the 80s.
That's true. If you haven't seen this, you would assume Friday the 13th, Jason, but Jason actually isn't in this movie. It's his mom, Pamela. So Pamela ends up getting her death, and Alice, last girl, the one who lives, she manages to actually escape. And that's pretty much where the movie ends. This movie followed kind of on the heels rather, of Halloween, kind of one of the preeminent slasher films. And this movie kind of partially attempted to capitalize on its shine, shall we say. But we'll talk more on that later. For right now, let's get into the visuals and kind of the sound of the movie. We are going to take into account, how it was for its time, as well as how it kind of stacks up now. So to start with, let's take a look at the visuals. Nico, how are they?
Honestly, taking them into account, I don't think they're that bad. Like, my point of reference for this movie is that the office manager loaned it to me at my job. The office manager loaned it to me along with a bunch of other horror classics from the time. And the other one that I had at this point in time when I first saw this movie, I've seen the movie twice now. The other movie that was sort of paired with that was Last House on the Left. And I don't know if it's going to be, I hope this isn't a controversial thing when I say that I completely fucking hated that movie, but they were made kind of around the same time, and this one honestly just looked a lot more professional. So I have no complaints, to be honest with you, and the gore was pretty nice too.
All right, Dan, how'd you feel about it?
I agree. I think it holds up pretty well over time. Stands the test of time. The only thing that I think that's sort of outdated, and I think about this for all the 80s, 90s movies, is like the slow-mo scenes always just look kind of to me. Like, I think there's like one near the beginning and one at the end. I think, they go into super slow-mo.
There's definitely one at the end.
Yeah. But like, I think part of it's just like the frame rates and everything. It's just very like jumpy kind of slow-mo.
You might even say choppy.
But aside from that, I actually think it stands up pretty well.
Interesting. I will say that I do also concur that it does, what it's supposed to do, especially take into account when the movie came out. There's one thing I kind of liked were the scenes where we don't know who the killer is till the very end. And part of what kind of helps that is whenever we might see things from the killer's point of view, but there's never anything that hints at who they are.
That is one of my favorite things about the movie, actually.
Genuinely, yeah.
And it's weird because when other movies do that, because like you said, like you see it, Jason, or who you think is well, I guess you don't think because you don't know Jason yet, but
the schmuck,
the killer, that schmuck. You see them use the kills and everything from that person's perspective, first person camera, or maybe just off camera, like you don't see who the killer is. And in other movies, sometimes I feel like it's not done very well. But in this one, I thought it was done really well. And I think it adds sort of a creepy aspect, almost stalkerish aspect too. Because
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, and like you see there's like plenty of parts during the beginning ish when she hasn't killed yet or is, just starting to, where you see the first person's perspective kind of back farther in the woods, and you're kind of seeing intimate moments with people, or maybe not even intimate, but just candid.
But they usually were intimate, let's be real.
I mean, usually, yeah. But I think it adds a really cool stalkerish, creepyish kind of vibe to it as well.
Okay. There was some gore. I quite enjoyed the decapitation of Pamela. I was like, oh, snap, when that happened, because they really went all in with the decapitation.
Mm-hmm.
Made me split my wig.
Ha. As well as, so there's a scene. I don't know if this is in the theatrical version or if it's only in the deluxe, unrated, uncut, big and sexy version. But there's a scene with a snake, and they chop that poor snake up. And apparently that was a real snake. It's not an animatronic. That's a real snake.
I mean, that'd be kind of a bullshit animatronic that would cost a lot. Like, just go out in the woods. I feel bad saying this, but times is tough, man.
Yeah, and times were different back then. Apparently that was before, you had to ensure humane treatment of animals, which is wild. But that, I will say,
that
actually
is wild, yeah.
Well, yeah, that took me off guard. So this is probably my third time watching this movie, but it is for sure a scene that took me off guard, just because I'm so used to nowadays, like if something happens to an animal, all right, it's clearly fake, or like that didn't really happen to an animal. But like, no, they just chopped it up, and like you can see its body like contort and stuff, and it's like it's too real. There's no way that's fake, especially in the 80s.
And knowing that it was real kind of puts a different twist on it too, because I think one of the characters, after it gets chopped, I think one of the characters goes, "Oh my God, is it dead?" And like, then the actress might have actually been like, "No, wait, is it really dead though?
Is it really dead?" Yeah,
I guess that was all in one take then. Fuck.
Yeah.
Or they started chopping up mad snakes, but yeah. So
they really had a real infestation on the set.
Hey, they were in the woods. But going back to it, in terms of the audio, what do you guys think? I will say I'll lead with, how do you guys feel about kind of the trademark that kind of, I guess it's supposed to be like mimic breathing or something like that? How do you guys feel about that? And then how do you feel about kind of the sound design in general?
I thought it was interesting. I kind of think that kind of voice breathing, whatever kind of sound, kind of added to the creepiness to me. And
honestly, yeah,
I thought it was cool. I liked a lot of the music, and it was very horror movie for that time, that kind of trope, I guess, a little bit. I liked it. The only thing I didn't like was the music at the end, like after the girl kills
that was
her.
real. It was real nice music, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I get that the bad guy's dead and everything, but like, I don't know. I just was expecting like Sarah McLachlan to start talking about like adopt these dogs or something. Like, I don't know.
Fucking ASPCA commercial the entire time.
Well, Snake just died, so maybe she was going to talk about that.
Maybe. I don't know. I get the point, but I just don't think it was executed well for me.
Speaking in general execution, how do you feel with the acting?
Nicely done.
The acting? I mean, shut up. But no, I think that honestly, this doesn't deserve any kind of like, I don't think it deserves a ton of flack. The only thing that really bugged me was the opening scene with Annie, where she has that real nice way of talking, and it sounds like she's just straight out a Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland. Gee, mister. Like, there's a name for that kind of voice, and I know that you guys know what I'm talking about. And that was just painful to listen to. But the rest of it, I mean, they were behaving like a bunch of college dumbasses, so like, I get it. I can't fault them for that.
I will say there was one line in particular. I forget the counselor who said it. Alice. There's a scene where she says, "What is going on?" And man, That particular delivery, if I was the director, I would have had her redo that. That was so flat. I was like, man,
oh my God.
They're eating her. They're gonna eat meat. Can we review that?
Oh, we will absolutely be
course.
reviewing Troll 2 at some point on this podcast. But
Fuck yes.
I will say it is, oh man, like it's definitely not going to win any Grammys for this movie. It doesn't have to.
Well, it's not gonna win a fucking Grammy because it's not a song.
Wow. Well, Oscar. Wow.
It's also not gonna win a Tony.
But yeah, no, it's pretty par for the course in my opinion.
See, it's interesting hearing you say that because I totally get it and I agree. But the way you guys feel, or maybe not you guys, I don't want to speak to your opinion on this, Dan, but the way you feel about this is how I felt about, spoiler for upcoming movie we'll be reviewing, Child's Play. And this was 8 years prior. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here because you guys know how I feel about that, but I genuinely liked this as a slasher significantly more than Child's Play.
Interesting. Kind of like future spoilers almost. But Dan, how'd you feel about the acting?
That was okay. I mean, there were a couple parts like you guys kind of mentioned that were kind of on the acting, but overall, I thought it was fine.
So let me ask you guys this now. So we all know, honestly, horror films in general have some of the most well-defined tropes and kind of trends. And slasher films, even within horror movies, are like the kings and queens, I guess, of having all these kind of, just random tropes, right? Like, for example, Alice. Alice is the last girl. She's the one who makes it through to the end. And it's like that in a ton of horror movies. There's always a last girl who survives. It's always a girl, typically the one who's had the least amount of sex. And
yeah, they actually make a point of that in Cabin in the Woods. That is one of the key plot points for
Jesus, spoilers for Cabin in the Woods.
Okay, look, I like the movie. I got excited about it. Let me show my enthusiasm, God damn it.
So what do you guys think are some kind of the major tropes outside of the whole last girl thing?
Probably
that was a teacher pop quiz question over there.
Yeah,
it was. Jeez.
I wasn't expecting it, Chief.
I know.
I think honestly, like, I can't remember. Halloween came out before this, right? 2 years before.
Yes.
2 or 3, yeah.
Okay, so I guess Halloween would have been the one to I don't know what I was trying to say. Do it first, pioneer it with the sort of like silent antagonist with the sort of like stalkery vibe, like Dan was saying. I feel like I appreciate that much more than I thought I was going to, because this might sound a little weird, I play a lot of horror video games. They are a very different medium, but a lot of the earlier horror video games that I've played, and I think, Justin, you can probably speak to this too, they sort of draw on tropes from movies like this, where you have like that classic whatever you call that, and there's the sort of like voyeuristic view of it's definitely you there, but you are not in control. So like, I appreciate those more than I thought, but it's not necessarily something that I would call groundbreaking.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I feel like if I'm talking about stuff that it drew from, probably Halloween is going to be the biggest one, right? Although, and this is going to make me sound like a hipster, Halloween wasn't the first thing to kind of really have that silent protagonist. We could take it back to like,
Hitchcock,
the Mummy,
right?
The Mummy, further back than Hitchcock. We could take it back to like the Mummy. Even some of like the old Hammer movies, like where we get they're monsters. They're monsters, but a lot of times they're silent, right? And they don't really have a lot to say. So I don't know. I feel like the kind of silent monster kind of morphed into the slasher a little bit. Sometimes the characters in this movie cared about each other a little too much, which led to premarital sexual relations, which is the number one way to get killed in any slasher movie ever.
Yeah.
No, I felt sorry for Kevin Bacon's character, Jack, because, I mean, he literally just now gets it in. This guy is smoking his, post-coital cigarette. Boom. Boom. This man gets knifed through the throat in reverse.
And it twists. It's not a clean thing. He like jiggles that shit in there.
That was a little unexpected to me too. I mean, I knew he was going to die, and I knew it was going to be like that scene. I thought it was just going to be a little later, like, you know, because the blood drops on his face, and then like immediately after that, like arrow through his neck. But like I thought it was going to be another like 15 or 20 seconds. I thought he was going to like get up, see the body, scream, and then get killed.
All right. So we all know this movie in particular has spawned a number of sequels, some of which we might actually end up covering at some point on the pod. But let me ask you guys this. Is this a classic?
Well, how do we define a classic, my good man?
I mean,
for the record, I'm picturing us sitting at a mahogany desk pouring out very old whiskeys and smoking cigars.
That'd be down.
I mean, I would say that a classic is something that kind of illustrates a timeless quality to it that you can go back and look and specifically point to it and say, hey, you know, this exhibited X, Y, and Z, and it's a shining example. You could go back and watch it right now. It's classic. It never gets old.
Okay. Well, then I like your I like your sort of already padding your case here because I agree with you, because I know you're going to say Halloween did it better. Which, again, like, no contest. But I really do think that this holds up. I would still consider this a classic, but for different reasons than Halloween.
I think it's a classic. I don't think it's a strong classic. Like, I wouldn't quite say it's 100%. You have to see this. Oh my God.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it, like you said, Nico, it holds up very well. And I think that just to me, in my opinion, on all fronts, it's a good movie. It's not necessarily an amazing movie. It doesn't, you know, do a really, really good job on anything.
It's humble.
It was an enjoyable movie. It holds up well 40 years later. I think it was good. I would consider it a classic.
And before I get too far into this, sorry, Nico mentioned Last House on the Left. So the guy who directed this movie, Sean S. Cunningham, he produced Wes Craven's Last House on the Left.
That actually makes a lot of sense because it was the writing in Last House on the Left that made the rest of it terrible. Like the shots, some of them were actually pretty similar. It's just that the pacing of Last House on the Left, and frankly, just the overall narrative is just so dreadfully boring.
It's okay, audience. I will punish Nico for that opinion later. But back to Friday the 13th. How do we feel about the twist in this, right? So I will say this. Anyone watching this movie pretty much after the year 1990 associates Friday the 13th with Jason in his hockey mask running around killing people. But, I mean, as we all know, in this movie, Jason isn't the killer. Jason actually isn't even in this movie till the last, like, I don't know, minute or two.
With that ye old slow-mo sequence.
Yeah, realistically, the killer is his mom, Pam Voorhees. So let me ask you guys this. How do you feel about the twist? How do you feel about making this kind of, you know, unassuming old lady the actual villain in this?
I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting because I'm sure everyone else expected it at the very least to be a dude. And I thought it was really interesting that they went with a lady and an older lady, and well, I don't want to say older lady, middle-aged lady, I guess. But one thing that I found interesting was that until you see her, until it's revealed that she is the killer, all the shots where you see like a hand, the killer's hand or foot or whatever, it is a man. That is a male actor. So it's not until the end that she comes in and reveals herself that it actually is her acting.
That's a good point.
I thought that was interesting. But I thought it was a cool little twist.
Fucking with the audience there.
Nico, how do you feel about that? Making it honestly,
like,
a lady.
I love it. I really do. The only thing that I don't know if you could even say it spawned really, but like I know there have inevitably been really stupid arguments on forums or Facebook somewhere where people say like, "Oh yeah, well, women can be violent too. I mean, didn't you see Friday the 13th?" Like I can already picture those asinine kind of conversations using this movie as a standpoint to be an asshole. But no, I really did like it from a narrative perspective. I wouldn't have seen it coming. I already knew about it going into it, even when I saw it the first time, just because of pop culture. But if I was in the audience, I wouldn't have seen it coming. I would have been genuinely surprised. And I think that paired really nicely with the character's sort of rapid descent into insanity that we see when she starts getting more hostile with Alice and keeps repeating herself over and over again. And it's clear that she's like actually lost her shit.
Yeah, but some quick maths right fast.
Quick maths.
So the movie's opening scene, it takes place in the camp was founded in 1935, but 1958 is when our opening scene takes place, and I believe that is when Pamela kills two of the camp counselors who were basically more or less responsible for Jason dying. That's what we're led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's off screen, right?
No. Well, she goes up and she kills them. You kind of sort of see it. It's
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's at the very start. So it's 1980 because it says present day. So it's been 22 years. And I know they hinted that she's also still been doing things like there's been like fires, like she's been doing whatever she can to stop this camp from being reopened. But yeah, I will say, it's been 22 years. At first I was like, nah, that would make it way too old. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, if Jason was just like a little kid, I guess age-wise it could match up, right?
Yeah, no, I could see it.
Like, Let's say Jason was like, I don't know. Let's say she had Jason when she was 18 and then Jason's maybe like 7 or 8, which would put her at 26. So then 22 years later would put her at 48. I mean, that looks about right.
She looks 48.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Yeah.
I will say, and this is just as like a side note, once she did get revealed, I was like, oh, you know what? Now I know why you killed all the guys. Because you can't fight for shit. Like I was like watching their like pathetic little struggle they had, and I was like, this is kind of bad. And then I don't know. So we'll get to it.
It was kind of cartoony.
So we'll get to it here. Are there any scenes in the movie that you particularly, because we kind of talked about stuff we did like already, anything you didn't like so much? And one thing I would probably have to say is, for me, all right, so Alice is the last woman standing. She's, oh man, she runs and grabs a gun.
Yeah.
Like loads that gun up. Now, I didn't notice this at first, but the room she's in is full of rifles.
Guns, yeah.
And literally, right? Like, so Pamela Voorhees walks in and they just stare at each other. And then Pamela just grabs the gun from her and then double slaps her.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like a pathetic little back and forth. And I'm like, what is going on? What is this?
That is pretty funny.
I'm like, you're in a room full of guns. All you had to do was shoot her. Like, come on.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest issue that I had too. That whole fight scene, I was like, what?
But why though?
Like there were so many times where you could have just done something else, like could have grabbed a gun, or when you're in the supply closet, like come on, there's got to be a knife in there or something other than like, I don't even remember what she picked up. Like come on, really?
As you were saying, Justin, the physical conflict at that point and later on in the movie when they're like more tussling, the levels of acting there are like levels of bad you don't see outside of like really weird porn intros. It was comically bad, man.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said really weird because there is some artistic pornographic material out there, but more so to the point, Pamela must have gone to Ninja Training Academy.
Yes, she did.
Because what the hell? Like when you see she's this like little old woman who can't even run very fast. But wait, she was like hiding like under
Kevin Bacon's bed.
Yeah, under Kevin Bacon's bed to like stab him and come across and like.
She must have been there for a while too.
Yeah,
like
and she went through his spine.
Yeah. Not only that, let's keep in mind as well, right? What was her face? The girl who he smashed, Marcy. Yo, she catches an axe to the face. Mm-hmm. What?
She catches
What?
the axe with her face.
Like, imagine this. Like, what? She pelted at axe? And like, I don't know. I feel,
I
you know,
love that your Trinity accent is coming out right now.
well, no, because it's like, you know, I felt bad for Annie. Annie's just so happy and chipper.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
she's like, hey guys, let's go down the road. And it's like, all right, didn't realize Goofy was your uncle. And then all of a sudden,
Oh, sure.
what? And literally the guy's like, well, it's about 20 miles away. Okay, shucks. You take me halfway? And then he takes her like 10 miles. And then she like gleefully hops off to walk the rest of the 10 miles.
It's like
I'd have
she's
been
fucking
like-
Bambi.
I'd have been like, old man, you trying to take me the whole way? But then, because think about it, to drive 10 miles in that little piece of shit truck he had wouldn't have been that long. So, okay, fine, whatever. Then a random passerby, and this is the cool part because it's Pamela Voorhees who picks up Annie.
Yeah.
It's confirmed because we do see the car when Pamela shows back up to Camp Crystal Lake.
Not only that, but you see Annie's body in the car.
Yeah.
But like, riddle me this. Annie jumps out of the car, moving at top speed, runs through the woods. Pamela catches up with her, sneak attacks her, like gets like a Assassin's Creed stealth move and slits her throat.
Yeah, she could have ran away real easily.
Bro, there's about 2 or 3 decades between when Pamela was a chef at the camp and now. So
Oh shit, she was powering up.
She must have
Yeah.
been honing her skills because
Training with fucking Piccolo over here.
I don't know what she was doing, man, but clearly it was working. But
She
that
was in
doesn't
the
even
hyperbolic time chamber.
no. But to be honest, you know who really was spending time in the hyperbolic time chamber though? It was definitely, without a doubt, Alice. Yo, Alice literally, look at this keikaku she hatched, yo. She stood up by the river, like by the lake, so she could see Pamela's reflection.
Yeah.
And then when Pamela got close, first off, she turned around to try to, her opening attack was a block, which was a dumb fucking move to start with. But so she like tries to block with an oar. Oh, that didn't work out.
Maybe Mrs. Voorhees is a charge character. You don't know.
Yeah, but I guess Pamela was just charging up her super because she all of a sudden she just gets the Holy Spirit, turns around, and with one swift chop chops off her head with like some bloodlust skill. Keep in mind, this is the same person who like 5 minutes ago wouldn't shoot. Now she's like, fuck it. I'm gonna just chop off your head.
Now I'm just imagining Pamela Voorhees as part of Marvel vs. Capcom universe.
I mean, she might be. But yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And I realized I just ranted there for a little bit, but sorry. Some real silliness happened in this movie.
It was a beautiful moment, Justin. It was a beautiful moment.
So let me shut my mouth for a little bit and ask you guys this. Let's take it back 10 years. We're all in college. Wait a second. We decide to be camp counselors.
Oh, fuck.
And then Psycho Killer breaks loose. How do we react? What would you do?
So I think, in my opinion, you can't do much until the end of the movie because
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Miss Voorhees was just running around murking people and no one knew.
Right.
Like it wasn't until the last kill that people
she was mad
oh
methodical.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, if I was Alice, I would have run away. Like there's a point where she knocked her in the head and like knocked her unconscious or whatever. I would have ran away. Look, I know that the closest town is 20 miles away. That's going to take like 10 hours, 12 hours, something. Like I know it's a long way, but if there's only one person after you and they're currently unconscious and it's woods,
they're never going to find you in the woods.
yeah. And I mean,
that or like steal her car, but also yes.
Yeah. And even if you walked, like you could walk along the very edge of the road, and then when you hear a car coming after you, you could like jump to the side or something, hide in the bush. I don't know. I would have run away at that point.
I mean,
Or
I got you
shot
there.
the gun and killed her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have loaded up my
Straight
gat.
up.
But Nico, how about you?
Oh yeah, no, I would have pulled a Tremors and just shot the motherfucker.
I got you.
Get the old elephant gun there, Reba.
What about you, Justin?
Honestly, and this is gonna kind of, I will tell you what I would have done. There was a line where we have our boy Bill. I believe it's Bill and Alice, right? And Bill's like, I'm gonna go check the generator. And Alice is
Mhm.
like, oh, do you want me to come with you?
Right,
Nah,
right.
you just stay here, girl. What? No. All right, Alice, you bring that knife. Let's go. Like, we're not bring a buddy. Ironically, they all had buddies, but they weren't sticking with their buddies. They were sticking it to their buddies, and that's what led to their deaths.
And in them.
Haha. But no, for real, just the buddy system, right? For example, probably the biggest example of this is going to be when they were playing Strip Monopoly, and literally it starts to rain and the door blows open, and Brenda just goes, "Oh shit, I must have left my window open. Good night, everyone," and leaves.
Yo, I like how if I'm not mistaken, didn't they start playing Monopoly like when it started raining? Didn't they like know it was raining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like an hour into the Monopoly game, she was like, "Oh, it's raining," even though you already knew that.
I mean, maybe she was just really fucking high, man. They mentioned it.
Like, that's a good point. Yeah.
They were sipping on some, like, I don't know, Red Stripe or something, but
I will say one character that we neglected to mention, the MVP of the movie what was his name? Ralph, I think.
oh yeah, Ralph, the guy who tried to warn him, the crazy
Yes.
guy.
Yeah.
He tried several
Yo.
times to warn them. Let me just say, this man biked 20 miles to hide in their pantry to warn them that they were going to die.
That's
And then
fucking
biked
dedication.
20 miles back home. He is the MVP of this movie.
Ralph is actually quite fit.
I
Little
didn't
known fact.
fucking think about that. Holy shit.
I was going to say as well, one thing that kind of immediately struck me was when Annie, it's like, hey, y'all, I'm going to Camp Crystal Lake. And then everyone just stops and stares at her.
Yeah.
Literally everyone in the store, regardless of whether they were talking with her or not.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, this might be a sign or a signal. But
I like how when she's in the truck with the guy who's like taking her there and he's like trying to get her to quit. And she's like, no, like, I'm not going to quit. And he goes, you youths are so like stone-headed, like
yeah, head full of rocks.
whatever. Yeah, head full of rocks. Like, wait a second. She's staying at her job and not leaving because of a rumor, of a supposed, I mean, it's true. And obviously, like, yeah, she should have quit. But like, I feel like that's opposite of what he was saying. Like, head full of rocks. Like,
I don't
how
know,
would
man.
that
Maybe
be
he
like?
just hated her voice.
I liked her actually. But
No, I liked her too. It's just like at a certain point it starts to sound like a Disney cartoon.
yeah, true enough. So I guess one last thing we have to talk about before we get into our little kind of closing section here is what's up with that end scene where Alice just kind of, her boat's out on the water and then she kind of hallucinates, or
Gotcha, bitch.
maybe it really happened. Yeah, pretty much. I
Mhm.
could put the Dave Chappelle voice in that.
Gotcha, bitch.
Like Jason jumps out of the water and grabs her.
Fuck your couch.
What is this?
I don't
Really
know.
funny, honestly.
It almost feels like they wanted to like do more, or if there was something else hidden, and then she's just like, that means he's still in the lake. What? Like, we went from like a pretty grounded slasher movie to what? I mean,
Just switches genres in the last 5 minutes.
it makes sense kind of in the sequel. Not really, because Jason's like a little kid at the end of this one, and by part 2 he's on steroids. So
That's a good point. Knowing that there were sequels, it kind of makes sense, but I kind of wish that scene wasn't there
me too.
because you're right. Like, it adds like a almost like supernatural kind of thing. Guy coming back from the dead, a drowned, whatever, little kid. Like, the rest of the movie was so real and so grounded. Like, I think that was a really good word. And now all of a sudden it's just like, wait, what? And it almost, I don't know. I don't like it. I didn't like that part.
And also, just so everyone can pick here right now, if you had to pick your favorite counselor, who is it?
It's not the dude who was dressing up like a goddamn Native American, I tell you that much.
Yeah, it didn't age so well, huh?
No,
No.
So-
no, it didn't. I think it was. Damn, I don't know.
Were they all so charming?
That's one word for it. I would say Kevin Bacon's character.
All right, Jack. Good all
Jack.
American. See, I had a favorite, but then I realized he might have actually been the dude wearing the headdress.
Oh God, I think it was him. Oh no.
At the start, I was trying to keep track. So I was gonna say Ned because I like the practical joke he
Isn't
played
the
where he like,
Joker?
yeah,
was
where
Ned,
he like,
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah,
was
that
it Ned?
It was
Damn,
Ned.
I have to take it back. Like, I have to take back my
Oh.
vote now. I was gonna say I enjoyed the little prank he played so he could kiss the girl or whatever. That was kind of funny, but like, oh man, it can't be Ned anymore. I'm gonna have to retroactively remove that Olympic medal. I'm gonna give it to Bill. You know what? He was playing strip poker with the girls and then dies checking on the generator. Pretty
Yeah.
generic. Can't go
Yeah,
wrong.
no, definitely. I have no complaints with that. Yeah.
All right then. So you have it. But and now I don't count Annie as that because she never got to officially be a counselor. But and she was in the movie for not that long. But I liked her. I did
Yeah.
like her
I liked
quite a bit.
too. Yeah.
Oh, and little piece of trivia about her. Apparently, Robbie Morgan, who plays Annie, was, I believe, it was acrobatically trained. So when she jumps out of the car, that's not a stunt double. That's her. She jumps. She does a little roll out of the car herself.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of a common theme in Friday the 13th movies in general. They get actors to kind of do their own stunts. There's a ton of injuries that have happened on set.
Dope.
That sounds like it would be real. Like that, of course, that's a thing that exists and happens.
Well, one thing they learned about these movies was that they could make them for like next to no budget, really low budget.
Dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah, and then they'd make a ton of money back on them. So of course, I'm not going to hire a stunt double for this movie. That's going to double the cost of my movie.
Hey, buddy, eat shit. Jump out of my Jeep.
That's why they didn't hire Jackie Chan.
I know, right?
I would have watched that movie in a heartbeat. Are you fucking kidding me? Jackie Chan versus Jason
Voorhees.
Oh my God, I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Is Jackie Chan not looking for trouble? But no,
he's about to get double.
So, man, taking it to the, kind of how the critics rated this one. Rotten Tomatoes here, favorite aggregator of the show, sitting at a 62% for critics and a 60% for the audience. How do we feel about that, Dan?
I think I would have put it at a high 60 or maybe 70.
Okay. Nika?
So, Justin, you might know more about this than I do. You're our resident due diligence researcher on aggregates. Does Rotten Tomatoes tell us what the audience at the time thought of it? Because I'm really curious about that.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. No. So it's more of just kind of like a sum of the current opinions?
Yeah. I think it might possibly have some older reviews.
Because I'd be genuinely curious to get kind of like and not just for this, but for frankly all of the flicks we're going to be working on, a contemporary and a modern take. Because my response is colored by both of those lenses, so to speak. If I was in the theater in 1980 and I saw this, I think I would have been terrified. And coming at it with a fresh sort of modern take and appreciation of horror movies, because I got into it later in life and because it's currently the year 2020, I think that honestly a lot of the principles that this movie uses and other movies in the genre also use really strangely hold up better than I expected. Again, Halloween is a much better film, but I would agree with Dan in saying that I think it should be a 65 to 70. But if I was in the 80s audience, I would say 75 to 80.
Huh. Okay.
You were not expecting that diatribe, and I apologize.
No.
Although that is why we're here.
I mean, that makes sense. For me personally, I actually, despite the fact that it is technically a horror classic, I'd stick it at mid 60s. So the 62% from critics, I'm not in total disagreement with that. In general, I kind of feel like this doesn't have the points I give it are largely for being not even the first. And that's the sad part. Like this was pretty clearly, hey, we want to capitalize on slasher movies. And
it's a bread and butter slasher. Like that's exactly what it is. And for what it's worth, I enjoy it for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible movie. I realistically couldn't call it a bad movie. I just, for me, in my pantheon of horror, it's not one that I really
I'm totally
idolize.
with you there. I'm totally with you, and we will eventually review Halloween, and then we can listen back and be like, "Oh, hey, that's what they said about the last one."
True enough. So, and this is what it comes down to. Does this get the official "Don't Open That Door" stamp of approval? Dan?
Yeah.
Nico?
Honestly, and I'm surprised to say it, but yeah.
Is it a no from Justin over here, resident hater?
And I'm okay with it. I understand it. I don't begrudge you it, not a bit.
Nah, I'm going to have to give it a yes myself. If only for the
Oh.
fact that this is a movie that, despite the fact that I have my misgivings about the movie, there's too much in it. There's too much that has inspired too much in other movies. Whether it comes down to The Last Girl, the whole like sex thing. Yes, Halloween did a lot of that as well. But I mean, this is another one of the movies that kind of those kind of tropes are remembered. And to be honest, this spawned the awesome movie that I liked much more. I believe it's Friday the 13th, Part 5, which introduces one of my favorite characters in any horror franchise.
What character is that?
We'll have to wait for us to review that.
Boo! Boo!
No, it's Tommy.
Now, quick question. For the tropes and kind of whatever that, you mentioned Halloween kind of really started, do you think that those tropes and things would really be tropes if Friday the 13th didn't also do them? Like, do you think this helped solidify those?
Yes, and that's why I'm giving it the stamp of approval.
Okay.
All right, well, that gets the stamp of approval. So please go ahead and see this movie. Might not necessarily be your favorite, but it's worth it for all the tropes involved. If you haven't seen the movie, get out there and see it. As always, have a great night from those here. And as always, please remember, don't open that door. Good night, everyone.